At Foundation Group, we get loads of questions about some nonprofit tax and compliance subjects that on the surface might seem obscure. Two of those issues are Form W-9 and Form 1099. Would you believe we get multiple questions about these every week? It's true, so let's get into it. Hi, this is Greg McRae, founder and CEO of Foundation Group, and welcome back to our 501c3 University channel, where we strive to make nonprofit issues understandable. We're continuing our series of viewer and reader questions, and today's questions revolve around Forms W-9 and 1099. First, let me briefly explain what those are. First, let's look at IRS Form W-9. Now, Form W-9 is used by one taxpayer to obtain the Social Security number from a person or an employer ID number or EIN from a business. Why would you do that? Well, it's usually about somebody paying somebody else, so they need the tax identification number of that person or business. For example, if my nonprofit receives services from a self-employed electrician, my organization should require him to fill out a W-9 so that we have his tax ID number at the end of the year. Since he's a sole proprietor, meaning his company isn't incorporated, it's just him, we need to send him a Form 1099 at the end of the year for the amount of service fees we paid him, assuming it's over $600 for the year. I know we just said 1099s, but we'll get there. I want to finish the thought on W-9s first. A very key point is that Form W-9 never gets submitted to the IRS or your state. Even though it's an official IRS form, it is exclusively for the internal use of your organization in reporting payments made to this individual. Also, it contains very sensitive information, and as such, you got to protect it from public exposure and from those who have no reason to know this information. Another key point about Form W-9, it's not to be used with employees. It's only for those non-employees that you will be paying who will receive a version of Form 1099, which is what I'll move to now. Now, there are several versions of Form 1099, but I'm going to limit my conversation to Form 1099 Miscellaneous and Form 1099 NEC. For seemingly forever, Form 1099 Miscellaneous was the only one worth mentioning. Form 1099 NEC didn't even exist until just a few years ago. Form 1099 Miscellaneous was used to report payments to independent contractors, rent payments, all kinds of, you guessed it, miscellaneous compensation. Now we have Form 1099 NEC, and the NEC stands for non-employee compensation. That used to be what Box 7 on Form 1099 Miscellaneous was used for, but now it's on its own form. So in my example of the electrician, my nonprofit used Form W-9 to obtain a Social Security number so that we could report his payments at the end of the year on Form 1099 NEC. Got it? Good. So now back to the issue at hand, and that's the voluminous questions we get about these filing forms. The first one today comes from Chris, and he writes,
If our 501c3 holds a fundraiser for a family and writes them a check for $1,800, are we required to ask them for a W-9 so that we can send them a 1099?
Great question, and it covers both forms. The short answer is, Chris, no, you don't. Now, I'm presuming that the money raised was for charitable or benevolent assistance of some sort for this family. If that's the case, the money is a gift, and Form 1099 is for reporting taxable compensation, not gifts. Gifts are never taxable to the recipient, ever. Therefore, you would never want to send them a 1099. It's important to note that, unlike a W-9, a copy of 1099 is sent to the IRS, meaning you're reporting that you paid someone taxable non-wage income. That means the IRS will be expecting the recipient of that 1099 to report the income and pay taxes on it. So never do that for a gift. Question 2 comes from Katie.
Our nonprofit hosted a t-shirt design contest and awarded 3 cash prizes for the top submissions. Do we need to get the 1099s from the winners, or can these be considered honorariums? The amounts were $250 or less.
Well, for starters, Katie, I think you're a little confused on the form you're talking about. What you really mean is, should you get a Form W-9 from the winners so that you can issue them a 1099 for the winnings at the end of the year? I'll address 2 aspects of the question. The first issue is whether these payments qualify for taxable reporting. In general, the answer is yes. Prize winnings are generally taxable. If you win a lottery or hit it big in Vegas, you're going to get issued a 1099 miscellaneous for that. In Katie's situation, the prizes are technically taxable, so they could issue a Form 1099 miscellaneous at the end of the year to these winners. The second thing to consider is whether they have to, and the answer to that is no. Each winner's prize was no more than $250, and the threshold for the nonprofit to report the winnings is $600. But even if Katie's nonprofit chooses not to issue a 1099, the winnings should still be reported by the recipients. You want to take bets as to whether the winners will do that? I think you know the answer to that. Our third and final question for today comes from Shannon.
I volunteer with a youth club that helps students with speech and debate. We hosted a camp over the summer and paid an individual over $600 to run the camp. She has hosted many camps in the area, but is doing it as an individual, not as an LLC or a corporation. Do I need to issue a 1099? If I do, I am past the deadline, so what do I do now?
Again, a very common scenario. Yes, Shannon, this individual is the textbook independent contractor, and you should absolutely be providing Form 1099 NEC to her. Now the hard part. You're late. Form 1099 NEC must be in the hands of the contractor by January 31st for payments made the prior year. And a copy that goes to the IRS must be filed by either the end of February if you're mailing it or March 31st if you're sending it in electronically. Now, if you're only late sending the one to the contractor but still within the IRS copy deadline, you're probably okay. It might irritate the contractor to get their 1099 late, but it is what it is. If you're sending a late copy to the IRS, they will penalize you at least $50 per late 1099 plus interest, and that's going up to $60 next year. But file it late anyway. You have a legal obligation to do this, penalty notwithstanding. I hope that helps you, Shannon, as well as Katie and Chris. If you all are asking these questions, it means that hundreds of others are wondering the same thing but didn't ask. That's it for today. Now go serve your community. Hey, do me a favor and don't navigate away just yet. We would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button below, as it really helps get our content recommended to more people. Subscribe if you haven't already, as we have great content coming your way on a regular basis. Finally, you can click the little bell icon to be notified of new content when we post it. To learn more about Foundation Group, you can visit us on the web at www.501c3.org. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.